Hey everyone, today we're quickly comparing the RTX 5060 Mobile versus the RTX 5070 Mobile, and for this I was using the following laptops. First, a Tulpar T6 3.5 with an RTX 5060 Mobile that in theory can use up to 115 watt with dynamic boost, while in this laptop in reality it was only 70 watt in almost all games most of the time. This one was paired with an i7 14700HX and 32GB of DDR5 5600 megatransfer RAM. For the RTX 5070 mobile laptop I was using a Gigabyte AERO X16 with a Ryzen AI 7 350, for which the RTX 5070 was using up to 80 watt in games, and this one was paired with 32GB of RAM as well. But well, that's just how it is with laptop GPU comparing these days. It's complicated, and since every laptop behaves differently anyhow, it's all just an approach to get an idea of the performance overall. There is a conclusion sheet at the end if you're interested, and yeah, I know it's not 100% fair, since the RTX 5070 can draw 10 watt more, and of course we have different CPUs, but to be honest, it's still not that much faster in most games. If I were you, I'd either go with an RTX 5060 mobile, or would say for an RTX 5070 Ti mobile instead of an RTX 5070, you know, because of the VRAM issue. All games have been benchmarked at 1440p and pretty high settings to rule out any CPU bottlenecks. Alright, enough chit chat, let's just jump right into the benchmarks. Alright, the first game for today is going to be Assassin's Creed Shadows, for which I was using the Ultra preset at 1440p in combination with DLSS set to quality, and frame generation was turned off. For the RTX 5060 mobile I saw an average of 36 FPS in this case and 44 FPS for the RTX 5070 mobile, which is an advantage of 22% overall. And here we can see that the 5070 is actually using around 8 to 10 watt more for the TDP, so it can boost a little higher sometimes, but on the same time the CPU on the RTX 5070 machine was a bit more used because it has less cores than the i7 14700HX, so the CPU usage seems to be higher here. I also want to mention that the VRAM usage was around 8GB here, probably not enough already for this test. Assassin's Creed Valhalla was running significantly better on both systems at ultra settings with 1440p, 70 FPS on average for the RTX 5060 mobile, and 88 FPS, which is an improvement of 26% for the RTX 5070 mobile. Surely very playable on both systems, though I still find it a bit distracting and misleading from Nvidia to call that a 115 watt RTX 5060, while the RTX 5070 with supposedly 85 watt is almost using all of that. So it's just so confusing. You just have to do your research before getting a laptop, and again, as I said before, it is a bit complicated. However, in Cyberpunk 2077 I was using the Ultra preset without any upscaling or frame generation at 1440p, saw an average of 51 FPS for the RTX 5060 mobile and a slightly higher average of 59 FPS for the RTX 5070 mobile, which is an improvement of 16% FPS wise. Surely playable on both systems, especially once you lower the resolution or make use of DLSS or even frame generation if you're into that. But in so many games, in my opinion, it doesn't really make sense to get the RTX 5070, especially if it's significantly more expensive than the RTX 5060. I mean, if you have two laptops and they cost the same, then of course get the 5070, but I don't know, once you pay like 15 to 20% or even more than that more extra, I wouldn't get it, I guess. Also quickly gave Far Cry 6 a quick benchmark run with the Ultra preset at 1440p, 86 FPS on average for the RTX 5060 mobile, and only very slightly better 95 FPS on average for the RTX 5070 mobile, an improvement of only 8%. And in Forza Horizon 5 I was actually using the Extreme preset without any upscaling. I was using MSAA by 2 at 1440p, saw an average of 83 FPS for the RTX 5060 mobile and 94 FPS, which is an improvement of 13% for the RTX 5070 mobile. Again, only a very slight improvement, and as we can see here, both GPUs basically use around 70 watt. The 5070 sometimes uses a bit more than that, but it's not using the usual 80 watt that it did as before. So they're pretty even and pretty close to each other TDP wise here, and as we can see, the difference FPS wise is now only 13%. I don't know if you just noticed this pretty heavy stuttering on the left side of the screen for the RTX 5060 here once again. That's because 8GB VRAM is not enough for the Extreme preset at 1440p for Forza Horizon 5. For Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 I was once again using the Ultra preset, this time with DLSS on quality, once again at 1440p. I saw an average of 47 FPS for the RTX 5060 mobile, and a surprisingly high 65 FPS on average for the RTX 5070 mobile, which is a big improvement this time of 38%, actually the highest improvement of today's benchmarks. I don't know why that happened, to be honest. Probably related to the memory bus size, or I don't know, the CPU or something like that. Yeah, and the Monster Hunter Wilds benchmark at Ultra preset settings with DLSS on quality and frame generation turned off isn't a lot of fun at 1440p. A lot of stuttering going on. You can see once again 8GB of VRAM is an issue, a lot of textures not loading correctly here. Some wild things going on in the frame time graph. 43 FPS on average for the RTX 5060 mobile and only slightly higher 47 FPS on average for the RTX 5070 mobile, which is an improvement of only 9%. And I would not play the game that way. Actually, on both systems you really need to drastically lower the graphics settings here. And I'm not really sure what happened for the Oblivion Remaster. I was double checking the settings, which in this case have been ultra settings, once again with DLSS on quality. Ray tracing was turned off, as well as any kind of frame generation. And for some reason I did get a better result for the RTX 5060 mobile with 42 FPS on average, which is 10% better than the 38 FPS I saw for the RTX 5070 mobile. I don't know what was the issue here. Double checked it. Yeah, just something that might happen with hardware testing once in a while. Could be the mainboard system driver, CPU, bandwidth, I don't know. So many factors that could cause this. And for Red Dead Redemption 2 I was using the absolute maximum possible settings without any upscaling, which is why the average FPS seemed to be very low here at 1440p with 40 FPS on average for the RTX 5060 mobile and slightly higher 48 FPS on average for the RTX 5070 mobile. I mean, you can optimize this game a lot better than this with lower settings and get much higher FPS. This is just to make sure I was fully using the GPU, ruling out any kind of CPU bottlenecks here. And of course, one of the most important gaming benchmarks of the last few years, Shadow of the Tomb Raider at ultra settings and 1440p, no upscaling activated here. High FPS for both systems, an average of 94 FPS for the RTX 5060 mobile and 111 FPS for the RTX 5070 mobile. An improvement of 18% by the way. Once again, we can see the 5060 is using pretty straightforward 70 watt almost all the time, while the RTX 5070 is able to use a bit more than that, 75 to 80 watt most of the time. Again, it's able to draw a maximum of 85 watt for this laptop with dynamic boost, which is not always activated or using the full potential. And for The Last of Us 2, we can see that the RTX 5070 mobile was using less wattage than the RTX 5060 system for some reason. And I saw an average of 49 FPS for the RTX 5060 mobile and 56 FPS, which is an improvement of 14% for the RTX 5070 mobile. And I was using the very high preset in combination with DLSS quality, and frame generation was turned off at 1440p. And the last benchmark for today is Black Myth Wukong, using the very high preset with DLSS set to 80%, frame generation was turned off, and I was using a resolution of 1440p again. Saw an average of 36 FPS for the RTX 5060 mobile and 44 FPS on average for the RTX 5070 mobile, which is an improvement of 22%. And here we can see that the RTX 5070 mobile system was actually using 80 watt almost all the time. In this case, very high GPU load for this benchmark. Almost comparable to what it uses when we're running a synthetic benchmark like 3D Mark. Alright, as we can see in this example, the 5070 is on average only 16.6% faster over the 12 tested games. And now even if we delete the weird Oblivion result, it's still just around 19% faster, and we'll have to keep in mind that the 5070 was using 10 watt more here on average. And that's all for today. Don't forget to like the video and or subscribe to the channel for more laptop stuff, GPU comparisons, reviews, etc. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye bye and tschüss.